everyone. Welcome. Please join us up front and take your seats. Thank you for being here. Pasen, por favor. We have a lot of room up here. Well, let me welcome you on behalf of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as our great friend and producer, Lisa Bombin, who is helping us with our convention. My name is Ramiro Cavazos. I started October 1 in 2018 as the new president and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Anthony. I have Anthony Jordan over here, who is a great friend who traveled all the way from Texas. So thank you, Anthony. And many of you who have come long places. We have folks from Chicago that have come in, and of course from the East Coast and West Coast. But we are so excited to be in Albuquerque. And let's give Albuquerque a round of applause. You know, we were discussing in April where we should have our national convention and really have our national convention. And we realized after visiting with your team here in Albuquerque and the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber that we needed to come home. And we were founded 40 years ago here in New Mexico, and we were chartered in Santa Fe by our founders. And the story goes that they were going to charter in some other state, but because of a blizzard, good fortune fell upon New Mexico, and the folks moved their meeting to New Mexico. They said, well, let's meet there. And so we're very excited to be here with you today. This is our kickoff. I grew up in Texas, and I was a farm boy, so when my dad said, prime the truck or prime the pump, I knew exactly what that meant. And so today, this is a primer. We are priming the pump because a month from today, we will be in Albuquerque with close to 1,500 business leaders from around the country. Now, let me just share some statistics. Many of you I'm preaching to the choir. You all are already aware that the engine of our economic future is the Latino community. And if you took the Latino community today, we have 60 million Hispanic Americans. Now, I love to say that we have more because being Hispanic is, according to Joaquin Blaya, a state of mind. And we are not a race. We are, as you all know, a culture and ethnicity. No matter what the color of our skin or our upbringing, we are united with this wonderful, vibrant culture that we fall under the Hispanic umbrella. And those 60 million Latinos in America from over 30 different countries and nationalities, they have close to a $1.7 trillion economic output in America. That's part of the greatest economy in the world. And so, remember, I said 60 million Americans who are of Hispanic descent, $1.7 trillion. That would be the 7th largest economy in the world. If you took the country of India, which is a powerhouse economy on its own, 1.3 billion people, not 60 million, but 1.3 billion people, the economic output of India is less than the 60 million Hispanic Americans at 1.7 trillion. So I say that, you all know the statistics, but we're producers, we're makers, not takers. We are the vendors for our companies and our organizations. We're the workforce. that is getting things done. And we're also the consumers. We are the fastest growing consumer in America, so we will be the purchasers of goods and products that our corporations and many of our small businesses obviously utilize. It is no surprise that we are standing on the shoulders of 500 years of history here in New Mexico with the Latino population, the Hispanic conquest that came through here. That many of you, I met someone today who's a 12th generation New Mexican, and we're very proud of each of you. As I said, it's a state of mind. So before I introduce our special guest and friend, Synthia Jaramillo, who's been a great champion for us, our Director of Economic Development. Let's give her a round of applause real quick. Synthia, thank you. You know, I had the blessing before I worked for the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber for 10 years to be the head of economic development for 7 of those years prior to that in San Antonio. And so I see in Synthia a kindred spirit. We love to create jobs, more and better jobs with equity and of course with fairness. And so I love what she does, and she has made an impact here. And Mayor Keller, thank you for selecting the first woman Director of Economic Development in the history. So a little bit of housekeeping, but important. We have some great board members with us today from the Chamber. We have Carmen Castillo, our chairperson. Carmen, thank you for your leadership. Rosa Santana, who you'll hear from today. She's one of our tri-chairs on our executive board. Rosa, thank you very much. Raul Salinas, our board member and general counsel. Raul, thank you. Welcome for being here. Yuri Kunza, who's the CEO of the Nashville Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Yuri, gracias, bienvenidos. We also have, and you'll hear from her, she will moderate our panel with our Bank of America, another great sponsor, Jackie O'Garrow. Thank you also, and Bank of America for being our sponsor. Jennifer Rodriguez, the great CEO of the Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and board member. So before I introduce Synthia, I wanted to let you know that we also have some other great friends here, and you can hold your applause, but I'd like to introduce Taide Aburto, who's the CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of E-Commerce, Jaime De Paulo, who runs the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, is in the house, and also want to thank Lily Valeta, who's here, who was our Hispanic Business Person of the Year last year. Hope Field with Coca-Cola, who's also with us and is one of our chamber sponsors, and Frank and Cecilia Herrera, also one of the compadres, are here. Frank, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Frank and Cecilia. And I want to thank, I think the former CEO Alex Romero might be here of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber, but let's give it up for Ernie C. De Vaca and his team at the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Ernie. You know, when I first met Ernie, I thought he was so cool. You know, he had this beautiful head of hair and great cool glasses, everything that I don't have. And but we hit it off. He's a kindred spirit. We love what we do. And thank you, Ernie, for giving us the honor of coming to Albuquerque. And thank you for being a great partner. Let's thank him again for his work. So 3 or 4 things, and then I'll introduce Synthia. We are going to talk about trade. We're going to talk about access to capital at our convention, September 29th, 30th, and October 1st. Leadership, collaboration. We have Clemente Nicado here with Negocios Now, so we're going to highlight small businesses. We also will do a lot of training and of course, connecting people to contracts and matchmaking. So I just want to thank the staff at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for helping put this event together. Thanks to each of you. If they could raise their hands. It's a small and mighty team. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. They're barely legal. They have vertical license, driver's licenses and things that I'm learning for the first time. But anyway, I'm supposed to end, but let me just end by thanking our staff. And I am so honored to introduce Synthia. We could not be here tonight without her and the City of Albuquerque's support, and of course the Hispano Chamber, the Albuquerque Economic Development Department, the mayor, and your whole team, Synthia. She is a single mom. She was the Chief Operations Officer at the Hispano Chamber for 3 years prior to being selected by our mayor as Director of Economic Development. She worked there for 15 years at the Hispano Chamber, so she's a chamber baby. She's a graduate of the Mendoza College of Business at Notre Dame and the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship graduate program with the Stanford School of Business. We love Synthia, and we know that she is a superstar, and we are so glad to have her partnership, and we're honored to be here at the Albuquerque Museum, thanks to our mayor and each of you. So on behalf of Carmen and our board of directors, muchísimas gracias. We're going to come back with lots of people in a month and lots of money and jobs for Albuquerque. Synthia, join us up on stage.
So I was instructed not to touch the mic, but if Marsh is here, I'm going to be very careful because I'm slightly shorter than Ramiro. Not by much, but slightly. Right, exactly. I just want to quickly acknowledge a few other sponsors that actually made tonight happen. Now, Bank of America is the title sponsor, but we could not do this without our partners at Albuquerque Economic Development, Inc. Gary Tonjes is in the room. He is our private sector partner when it comes to recruitment and retention, so thank you, Gary, for allowing us and helping us to make this happen. Thank you, Ramiro, and thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ernie. It is a privilege for me to be here tonight as we welcome the 40th Annual United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce National Convention to Albuquerque. Now, I'll tell you what, Ramiro talked about the years that I spent at the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Now, this is the third year that the convention has been in New Mexico, but I've been waiting 17 years for it to come back to New Mexico, so welcome home. Now, when Mayor Tim Keller appointed me as the city's economic development director, he and I sat down together and we articulated our mission. And our mission is to build an economy that works for everyone. Now, my boss, he made it very clear that we were not just going to use a singular approach like trying to lure all of the big fish. He made it clear to me that we're going all in to create quality jobs, play to our strengths, to foster growth and ignite innovation. Now, we believe small business is truly, like Ramiro said, the backbone of the economy. And the City of Albuquerque is prioritizing providing support for local businesses, utilizing the best assets and opportunities Albuquerque has already developed, growing the economy from within. Now, every economic development approach has been rooted, Ramiro also alluded to this, has been rooted in the principles of equity. We know that the strongest economies are those that prioritize equitable growth to create jobs for people from all walks of life. For example, Latino entrepreneurs, now you all know this, I don't need to share this with you. However, Latino entrepreneurs are starting small businesses faster than the rest of the startup population and becoming a bigger part of the total U.S. market every day. And that is why we are supporting Emprende Latino, the first tech accelerator in the country created for the Latinx community that is also backed by venture capitalists that will award $100,000 in seed funding to those who complete a 3-month accelerator program. Now, again, I don't have to tell you this, but estimates are that we will make up 29% of the U.S. population by 2050, up from 17% today. And according to a study by the Stanford Graduate School of Business, if those businesses grew as fast as the US average, they could add $1.4 trillion to the US economy. Now that's a tough number to imagine, but here's some sense of scale. It's 40% more in 1 year than Microsoft has made since it was founded in 1975. Now that's the power of our community. It's more than the GDP of every country in the world. Below the top 10, bottom line, it will add almost 8% to the 18 trillion US economy. All of those 18,500 businesses in the United States with 500 more employees once began as part of the small business sector. For example, Apple started in Steve Jobs' garage. Facebook got its start in Mark Zuckerberg's dorm room. Home-based, non-employee businesses became small employers, which in turn became big businesses. So in a way, one could argue that the American small business economy is the American economy. It's where the US economy begins. Now, this conference is an opportunity for businesses in Albuquerque and across New Mexico to network and share in continuing that story. Share best practices and learn from other Hispanic leaders and small business owners from all over the country. Now, it is my honor to introduce my boss, Tim Keller. Tim Keller has served as the mayor of Albuquerque since December of 2017. As mayor, he is working to make the city of Albuquerque a safe, innovative, and inclusive community. And I mean that on all fronts. I'm living it every single day. His vision for economic development focuses on supporting local businesses first and providing opportunities for entrepreneurs in order to create quality jobs, foster broad-based economic growth, and again, ignite innovation. And to carry out his vision, he selected me to serve as the first, not only woman, but Latina Director of Economic Development. Help me welcome our mayor of the city we all love, Mayor Tim Keller.
All right, well, bienvenidos a Albuquerque. Welcome back home, U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And of course, I also want to say welcome to Burque. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Before I share with you just a few remarks, I also have a few folks I want to thank and mention. We're joined by lots and lots of dignitaries this evening. And we would love to sit here and name them all. But I just want to give a quick mention. We have our consular from Mexico right here. Consular Ang, thank you so much. Also, our honorary consular from Spain is here. Mr. Fred Mondragon, honorable in the back. Thank you so much, honorable. And I think I saw our state auditor, Brian Colon. Brian's still here. Thank you so much, Brian Colon. And let me say this also, Synthia, who, by the way, it's hard to really pin down, essentially, how much she's been able to do for our city, unless you zoom out and you think about the last 18 months. In the world of economic development, in the world in which she lives and breathes, we have brought Netflix here, we've brought NBC Universal here, and yes, we've brought the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here. She is killing it as Economic Development Director. Great job, Synthia. Now, she also mentioned a very important project that I wanted to touch on as well, but more so because the gentleman behind it is here with us too. And so the Latinx Community Accelerator, I think I saw Stephen Lucero. So here, thank you so much. He is the backing behind it along with the city and others. First of its kind in the nation, thank you so much for investing in your hometown. So as I thought a little bit about what everyone has, I think, touched on, which is very important, is this notion of the chamber coming back home. For us, this is very, very special. as we heard before from our tremendous director, Ramiro, this is something that in many ways we like to take credit for. Even if it was because of a blizzard. We're still taking all the credit. But this is something for us that I even heard stories about from Alex, who I think might not have made it tonight, but is one of our legendary former chairs. And the notion that the National Chamber started right here in New Mexico has always been a pride point for us. And so it really came out when it was, I'm trying to remember the exact date, I can't quite get it. I think it was in September, maybe October last year. And Synthia came running over to the office and she's like, the president of the National Chamber is here. And I'm like, that's great, that's awesome. And she's like, we need to go meet with him now. And I was kind of like, okay, we got crimes, some other things we're working on, and she, locals know what I'm talking about. And she was like, you've gotta tell him about what we're doing as a city, and a little bit about what we believe in Albuquerque, and just maybe, he can convince the chamber to come here for the 40th anniversary. So I ran over to our convention center, which you're all going to get to see. I know the locals here know it. Refurbished nicely. And there was a nice boardroom in there, by the way, and we met in the boardroom. I'd never even been in this room. I'd been mayor for about 6 months, I think. And as an aside, if you'd like to rent that out, it's available. But it's got a hand-carved table, it's beautiful, and the guy who does that, who also we should recognize, Jose Garcia is here, and he coordinates everything at the convention center for SMG. So those of you in the tourism world, in the convention world, he is a very, very important person. Anyway, he connected us there. So we show up, and we have, one of these, I think, genuine conversations. And of course, it was facilitated by Ernie, who meets me at the door and kind of gives me this, like, I'm glad you're here, don't mess it up look. Which if you know Ernie, I've had that look before. I had that when, I was in the state senate and he was at P&M, and, so I know that look. So I tried to shift into my A game. But we said, we reminded each other of each other's story. I learned about his background, where he came from, and of course, recently, the issues that the chamber is dealing with on national levels. And then I think we were able to remind our respective teams of our city's story. And I know for many of us here who are from here, born and raised here like myself, or have been here for 12 generations, we know this story. But for our visitors, I want to touch on it just a little bit. And I know Ramiro did, but we're very proud of the fact that the whole wave, whether you want to call it Hispanic, Latin, whatever your term is, we love and we are proud that it started right here in New Mexico. That's right. And so for us, one shift we are trying to do is we are trying to return, in many ways, home for ourselves. We are trying to remind ourselves, and in many ways the rest of the country, that the birthplace of Hispanic culture in America was right here in New Mexico. And what's amazing about this, it also hasn't left. So we got a lot of things going for us right here in New Mexico that we believe no one else can compete with. And it's no disrespect to Nashville and San Diego, and I know some of the other chambers that are here. But for us, when we think about where we are as a city and where we are as a state, I think in many ways there's a lot to celebrate. We know that even from a power structure, from a leadership perspective, we have had and continue to have Hispanic leaders at basically every office. We've had multiple Hispanic mayors. We've now have 2 in a row Hispanic women running our state. That is an awesome thing. Let's give a round of applause for that. And if you look back, we've had ebbs and flows in this, and we've had our challenges, and I want to speak to some of these challenges. But by and large, I'm proud to say that we have always been a community of color. In fact, the term minority-majority is a little confusing right here in New Mexico for us. Because if you add our Native American population, our Hispanic population, we have always been a majority-minority community. And that is an awesome thing. That's something we're very proud of. That's right. And so for us, we still have our challenges, but we also know that we are 6th in the nation when it comes to minority-owned businesses. That is another tremendous accomplishment. We also know that 99% of the businesses are small businesses, and that the majority of those businesses, the vast majority, which are a part of our local chamber, are Hispanic-owned businesses. And so for us, we believe that while we're a crossroads for many cultures, our cultures also stay, and they put down anchors that we are proud of and that we grow up with each and every day in almost every aspect of our life. That is why we are welcoming you back home. So let me also share this. We have some challenges, no doubt. In fact, we have some of the same challenges that the rest of America does. And ironically, some of it even has to do with things like city contracting. And despite the fact that we have so many Hispanic-owned businesses, unfortunately, we see the same inequities in city contracts going to mostly Anglo-owned businesses. Or I'll translate for you, white-owned businesses. For those of you who, we tend to use Anglo for some reason here. And so that is a huge challenge for us today. And now it's my challenge, it's Cynthia's challenge. We also have many of the same disparities that you see, whether it's an education level, or particularly it's around wealth, or it's also around access to resources. So we share, in many ways, all of the same challenges that the Chamber faces all across America. But we like to believe that we bring a little bit of X factor. We bring a little bit something different to the table. And for everyone who comes to this event in October, they are going to feel that all over each and every hour of this conference and each and every minute of the time they spend in Albuquerque. Now, for us, I also want to highlight, because next up is a wonderful discussion that we're going to tee up here. And we also have been working across this notion of the intersection of power and gender and of ethnicity. And in New Mexico, like a lot of places, we certainly have a long way to go. But I think in many ways, we have a lot to celebrate. And I mentioned where we're at in terms of political power and what we're seeing in our governor's office. I also know that we have our city council is now run by all women. All the leadership positions are women positions. That's a great thing. And our chairwoman is a wonderful Hispanic woman, Clarissa Pena. And for us, we know we also have wonderful luminaries in the business community, whether it's Jackie and Ana Baca from Bueno Foods, whether it's Contract Associates and Maria Griego Raby. We also know Edna Lopez and her work with Compra Industries. Thank you, shout out, she's here with us. And even the work of folks like Loretta Armenta, who really built the modern Hispanic Chamber of Commerce right here. That's right, our whole community owes her a debt of gratitude. So 40% of our New Mexico businesses are also owned by women. So we feel like we're in good shape, but we also have a long, long way to go. And so to talk about that is really what our next panel is about. I just want to mention in closing, I think, really two things. Number one, we're trying to do what we can at the city. You heard about this new incubator initiative. We're also really trying to work in the area of IT and STEM, and the disparities, the inequities, especially along racial and gender lines that lie around coding and education in the STEM fields. And so here, I believe our city is now quickly catching up to the forefront of that with efforts like Cultivating Coders and our digital equity programs that we're launching. We're also doing a matching program for the JTIP programming. Our locals know what that is, but that is funding for workforce training exclusively for small businesses who are growing. Our city has now allocated $1 million for that. And also the Molino Project, which is based on this homegrown concept that we call color theory. But it's about this notion that a lot of businesses of color and minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, what they're really lacking is support on the legal and accounting end. And it's about sort of diversifying that, but also providing that service in the meantime so that they're not held back by not having access to those services. So for those locals that are here, stay tuned for more on that. Now, for those of you visiting, we want you to come early and we want you to stay late. And as a bonus, if you stay late, you get the balloon fiesta. So that's a pretty good bonus. That's right, well-timed and well-placed. And we also want to invite you, at a minimum, have a chat with our economic development group here, as well as our site location folks. We do really want to pitch you on moving some business here. We'd love to talk to you about different city contracts and all things economic development in Albuquerque. And so with that, let me just say, going back to that initial story, you know, I would venture to say in my young tenure as mayor, I don't think there has been a higher return on investment 15-minute meeting than the meeting we had together. And there was a lot of work in between, but I want to thank the National Chamber for believing in Albuquerque and for coming here for your 40th anniversary. Thank you so much. Thank you.